Now that we have installed Python, looked at the Python shell, it's time to start with our first program and figure out how to write a program, save a program, and run a program. So first of all, going up to the file over here, and we're going to say new file. And thus far it's untitled. Eventually we're going to save it when we think of the name for our program. For right now, we're just going to type. I'm going to type b equals 0, so I'm going to assign the value 0 to the variable b. And once we get in chapter 2 and chapter 3, we're going to discuss assignment statements and loops and some of the things we're going to write in our first program, but I'm going to kind of glaze over that at first to kind of give everyone a good feel for just the process of creating a program, running a program. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to assign b the value of 0, and I'm going to have the next line because I'm going to add some more code in here. In some programming languages, you put a semicolon at the end of assignment statement or line, but not in Python. Python has a really minimalist philosophy. Things are designed to be very simple. And I'm going to put a little spacing here just to keep things apart. And I'm going to put another statement. And this time I'm going to do a loop, and we're going to go into loops in more detail in later chapters. But for now, we're going to do this quick loop, and I put a colon in here, and I have an indent. You notice that I'm going to start the next line under slightly indented, and what I'm doing by making these indents, and when you put a while statement or a loop, your idle is going to automatically try to do that indent for you to help you out. Okay. So now what we have there, I assign a value of 0 to b, and then after that we go and say, hey, we want to use what is called a while loop for b to be less than or equal to 10. So what it's going to do, it's going to go in this loop, and it's going to run everything under the while, the whole little indent here. It's going to run everything basically forever until the while condition is met, and that's a b is less than or equal to 10. So up until the point b hits 11, it would meet that condition of being less than or equal to 10. So it's just going to keep on repeating that. And if I didn't put this line here in there, b equals b plus 1, we might be in trouble because it would run basically forever. So what we're going to do is we're going to run that now. And I hit run and then run module, and it's going to tell me, oh, your source must be saved. I'm going to say OK, and then we're going to get a name for it. We're going to call it, looking at what's in the directory, we have a number of things, and I'm going to just call it test4. It's number 4 of the little test programs that I've written in here. So I'm going to save it, and it's going to let me run it. And what we have is basically a program that counts. It goes from 0 to 10. And when it finally does reach 11, it pops out of the loop. And we're going to go here, close down that run of the program we had, and we're going to put some not on the actual line of the loop, but we're gonna put a print at the very end of it. And this time, instead of printing B, we're going to just put some words, and we're going to say all done. So now what our small program does, it assigns 0 to B, and then slowly counts with B from 0 to 11, which 11 it leaves the loop because the condition right here of the loop has been met. So now we're going to run this, and we're going to have to save again. Now what we see has happened is that we have an error in line 8. If we go to line 8, it's that print statement that we added. If you look closely, you can see when we did a print statement here, when we printed what was in B, it was in purple, but I typed print again. This time it didn't show it in purple, and it gave us an error. What it's telling me is that it doesn't understand what print is. It says print is not defined. Now that's because Python is case sensitive, and that means that it matters the case of the letters. So lowercase print is very different than uppercase print. So if I change the uppercase to a lowercase, now you see how it changes back into purple. Now idle is telling us that, hey, I understand this, and we can submit it to Python. So that's one of the nice things about IDE. You could write. You don't have to use I to write Python. You could use anything. You could write a Python program with Notepad or basically any editor that you can make a text file and name it with the Python extension in the back of it. But any editor is not going to do any of this color coding or error checking or anything like that, and that's why we use a IDE, because it's it's more than just a simple text editor like Notepad or something. It actually has knows some of the language and does a lot of pre-checks even before we actually run a piece of code. Okay, so now that that's changed, we're going to run it. And it looks like it's done. Loop through there. 5 times I had it there. Let's switch that to 5. Let me put it back to 2. Let's put it back to 1. Let's put it back to 1. So let's get a whole bunch of times in there. Okay, run module. Okay, there we go. Notice how if I change the increment, when I do it 1 time, it's going to increment it by 1 until it reaches that condition where it hits 11 and then goes, no, I'm going to get out of this loop. But if I change it, switch it back to 2. So I run this. And you see how the 2, it steps through it by 2, so it increments by 2. Now with 5, of course, a lot fewer times with 5. But this basically how you can increment a loop and get out of there. If you change the condition here, so if we change this to 20, that's going to say, hey, we want to stick in this loop until we pass 20. So let's go here and let's run this again with the 20 in there, and let's see what we get. There we go. So we're going up by 5. So we're going 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, and then all done. Now if we were to put another print statement in here, well, this print statement, let's do it within the block of the loop. So what we want to do now is, you see how the print statement, it prints out, the current one is just printing outside. It's saying all done, you know, when we were out of the loop. But we want to put some in the loop, kind of like the number count print statement. We're gonna do another print statement in the loop, just some text here. And you notice how we're keeping the indent the same, because if I were to put it over here, it wouldn't consider it part of the loop. So let's try that here. So we're gonna do it here. We're gonna run. Okay, so it's going through there. It's counted by 5, and it's also putting the verbiage count. Now you see me made a change. Look, I broke the loop. I popped out of the indent structure. I'm gonna run that, and just by me moving it out of the indent, Python knows that, hey, this is no longer part of the block of code to execute for the while statement. It's just like the all done. So it wasn't the space in between, it was just the indentation, and that's how Python knows that you have a block of code. And when I broke the indent, I left the block of code and kind of left this statement kind of stranded, like the other one over here. So if we want to put that back in the loop, all we have to do is put the indent in there, run it, and we have the count back within the actual loop.